Taf Yud Ches Amud Beis, 4 lines from the top. We were in the middle of the discussion of the Kiva, how he knows and how he darshans the word Yitma in the Pasuk. The Pasuk says is that if a sheretz falls into a Kli Cheres, V'chol Kli Cheres asher yipol behem al teicha, kol asher b'seicha Yitma, v'oisai tishboro. It says, any food there over there that's in the kli yitma. And any liquid yitma. So we darshan before yitma yitame that it doesn't say tome. It says yitma, which we darshan mean not only it is tame, but it's matama others. Therefore, a liquid we learned is matama and oichel. Now the Gemara is asking yitma the reisha hechi darsh. How is Rabbi Kiva darshaning the yitma and the reisha? The reisha of the pasuk that says mikola oichel asher yochel asher yovalav maim yitma. How is he darshaning the yitma and the reisha of the pasuk regarding oichel? He darshans the yitma and the sefer as far as mashkim, that a mashke in the Kli Cheres is not only Tomei, but it can be Matame others. It can be Matame and Eichel. How does he darshan the Yitma Doresha? Yitma Doresha Echi Dorish Mikol Eichel Asher Yochel Asher Yovel Amayim Yitma Yitame Letame Samashkim. So he darshans it in a similar way that food that became Tomei in the Kli Cheres can be matama mashkin. It can be matama liquids. If that came into contact with liquids, it can be matama. Outside matama is a mashkin, or matama is a kli. Maybe you'll say no. It means to be matama the kli, a utensil. How do you know it to tell you that it's matama mashkin liquids? Maybe it's a kli. On Kal V'chomer, you say no. It's a Kal V'chomer. You can learn from the Kal V'chomer that it cannot be matama a kli, because uma mashke shematama oichel ein matama kli, madach mashke shematama oichel. A mashke could be matama oichel, like we learned previously. It's not matama kli, and matama kli it can't be matama kli, like we learned before. Oichel she'ein matama oichel, and oichel which cannot be matama oichel, which will darshan shortly how we know that, but a noichel cannot be matama noichel. So therefore, ein din shelo yatamikli madach hamashke that is matama and oichel. It's not matama kli, an oichel which is not matama another oichel, as we'll darshan shortly. But an oichel is not matama another oichel. Certainly, it's not matama kli. Ani mekayim yitma. So how do we darshan the yitma? It doesn't say tama. It says yitma, which implies yitameh to be tama something else. L'tama samashkin to be matama and mashkin, that the food that became tome in the Kli Cheres can be matama a liquid if it touches it. Shehein alulun lekabel tuma, which liquids are prone to be makabel tuma. Frek the Gemara Ma'ir mashkin mishum da alulun lekabel tuma. Why do you have to give this reason for the mashkin? That's alulun lekabel tuma. Teipaklei mishum da leka mirachrina. Why don't you say simply because there's no other alternative? It can't be matama kli, and it can't be matama another oichel. The only thing left to be matama is a mashke. So that's by process of elimination. That's what it's matama. Why do you need a special reason, overriding reason? Because the mashke is alul mekabel tuma. More answers hachikomar. This is what we mean to say. Hachikom. Well, you're making Kal V'chomer, and you're saying the mashke is chomer because of matama oichel. Well, I'll say it the other way. I'll say, therefore, well, an oichel is chomer because it's tama mashke. A mashke is not matama another mashke, but an oichel is matama another mashke. Netame lekli, and therefore I should make a Kal V'chomer that it should be matama a kli. So just because a mashke is not matama a kli, but maybe an oichel is matama a kli, maybe it should be matama a kli, because the oichel is more chomer. A mashke cannot be matama mashke, but an oichel could be matama mashke. So maybe it should be matama kli. So our answer is how chomer the mashke. No, the fact that it can be matama the kli, the matama the mashke rather, doesn't show you the chumrah of the oichel. It's not a chumrah of the oichel that it can be metama mashka. It's a chumrah of the mashkim, mishum the mashka lul kabul tuma, because mashkim are susceptible to tuma. They're more prone to be mekabel tuma. So it's not the chumrah of the mashka, the oichel. It's not a chumrah of the oichel that the oichel has a greater power to be metama, and therefore make a kal v'chomer that it should be metama kli. No, it's not. It doesn't show you the greater power of tuma of the oichel. It's opposite. It shows you that the mashke, the mud liquid, is more susceptible to tuma. That's why the oichel is metama the mashke. That it can be mekabel tuma without a hechsher. And oichel is only mekabel tuma if first, after it was detached from the ground, it came into contact with the liquid. Only then, if tuma comes into contact with it, it's metamed. But a mashke doesn't need another hechsher. If you have a liquid comes into contact with tuma, it's tame right away. So therefore, it's alul mekabel tuma. That's why if an oichel touches it, it is metamed. However, it doesn't show you that it's a chumrah of the oichel, and therefore we cannot learn out that the oichel is metama kli. So a liquid that touches an oichel is metamed. An oichel that is metame, a liquid is metame. Neither of them are metame kli. Yitma, the pasuk says yitma. It doesn't say yitame. Now we're learning it over here. That's metamadas, but it doesn't say yitame. So why doesn't it say clearly yitame? It doesn't say tome, because it wants to teach you that it's not only tome, not only the food and the liquid that's in the kli cheretz with the sheretz is tome, but it also conveys tuma. So it doesn't say tome, it says yitma. But why doesn't it say more clearly yitame? So yitma deinoisa kiyitzabo. So this is what it teaches you, that this is what we say, that an oichel cannot be metame an oichel. Al mashke cannot be metamo mashke. It doesn't say yitame. It just says yitma. It becomes tuma. It cannot be metama something else of its own nature. That it's something that what is mentioned in the pasuk. So kol ha'echel yitma. So it doesn't say yitame. So meaning it cannot be metame an oichel that becomes within the kli cheretz yitma. It becomes tame, but it cannot be metame what? The oichel that's said in the pasuk. It can't be metame an oichel, so it can be metame mashke. A mashke that's in the kli cheretz is tame. It doesn't say tame, it says yitma. But it doesn't say yitame, so it teaches you it cannot be metame others. What can it not be metame? The mashke that is mentioned in the pasuk. So therefore, the oichel can be metame mashke can be metame an oichel. But neither of them can be metame kli. In fact, the Gemara Mahacha Nafki, you're learning out from over here that you cannot be metame ki yoitzaboy, it cannot be metame something of its own nature, only something else. An oichel mashke an oichel. Mahasam Nafka, we learn out from elsewhere. It says v'chayitein maim al zera v'nafal midivlosam alav tomehu. It says if there is water that's machir zera, tuma nevela falls on it, it's tome. Tome who? Who tome? It is tome. Veino said tuma ki yoitzo. It is tome, but it cannot make a tome to something else of its own nature. So you see, you learn that from that pasuk. The more answers chad b'mashkin aboy machmas sheretz. One pasuk is talking about mashkim that became tome through a sheretz. The pasuk we just quoted, when it says that menafal minivlos means the nevela of a sheretz, means a dead sheretz. So one pasuk is talking about mashkin aboy machmas sheretz that became tome from a sheretz, v'chad b'mashkin aboy machmas kli, and the previous pasuk is talking about mashkim that became tome from a kli that became tome through a sheretz. Meaning, and the mashke over there in that case is only a sheni, not a rishon. The first pasuk is talking about when it became tome from a sheretz, where the mashke is a rishon. That pasuk is talking where the mashke is a sheni. Now Rashi mentions that the pasuk really literally doesn't even talk about a mashke, because it says v'chiyutan ma'im al zera v'nafal nevlosam alav. The nevela means when a liquid falls on something, on a zera, it's machir the zera. So the pasuk literally is talking about where the sheretz fell on the zera, on the seed. the mind was maksher, but through a hekesh we learn out if one from the other, and if that's the case is by an oichel, that an oichel is only metama mashke and it's not metama another oichel. Similarly, by a mashke, that would be the same din. So, however, we have one pasuk where the mashke is a sheni, and one pasuk where the mashke is a rishon. And it's three. I need both. It only told me the case where the previous pasuk was mashke b'machmas kli mishum d'lo chamiri. I would say the reason it's not metama another mashke is because it's not so chomer, because it's only a sheni. Aval b'mashke b'machmas sheretz, but if it came into contact with a sheretz, where therefore it's a rishon, the chamiri is more chomer. I might think that it can make tumah kiyatzeba. It can make tumah even to another liquid. Well, then tell me the case of sheretz. Why do I need both? Tell me the case of sheretz, where the mashke is a rishon, and certainly in the case where the mashke is a sheni. More answers ain't a chanami, but milsad also become the chaymer tarach l'kasel l'kroin chanami. But sometimes you find something where you could have learned it out of the pasuk, you could have learned it out rather from a kal l'chaymer. Nevertheless, the pasuk says it explicitly. It tells you and writes it explicitly, even though theoretically you could have learned it out from the kal l'chaymer with the Gemara, but the Torah rather says it very clearly and explicitly. Now the Gemara continues with a different approach. Previously we said that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Akiva holds like Rabbi Yossi. But now Ravina says to Rav Ashi rather that that's not the case. Omer le Ravina le Rav Ashi v'Omer Rava. Rava says lo Rabbi Yossi savak Rabbi Akiva v'lo Rabbi Akiva savak Rabbi Yossi. He says they do not hold one to each other, like one to each other. They don't agree with each other. Now, we'll see why that is so, because according to Rabbi Akiva, he darshan from the pasuk that it says that the mashke, whatever mashke is in the kli cheres, that the sheretz fell into it, it says yitma. It doesn't say tama, it says yitma. It means yitame. It can be mitama others. That means that the liquid is a sheni, and it comes into contact with the food and makes it a shlishi. So Rabbi Akiva learned out that there is a shlishi by chulin. Even by chulin, there's a level of tumah of a shlishi. Rabbi Yossi, as we'll see, holds not that way. So therefore, they do not hold of each other. So Rav Ashi said, Amar lei Rabbi Yossi b'shitas Rabbi Akiva Rabba Amra v'lei lo svirlei. He says that he quoted and he mentioned that the liquid is tomei midoraisa, and it can be metame, it can be metame eichlin. He was not quoting his own shita. He was quoting the shita of Rabbi Akiva's Rebbe, but he himself held not that way. He himself held like Rameir, that it is not minat Torah. There's no tumah for the mashke minat Torah. So Omer le Rav Ashi le Rav Kahana. That he said, Bishlam Rav Yossi l'sav like Rabbi Akiva. Bishlam, we understand that Rav Yossi doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva from the fallen, because the Sanya we learned Omer Rav Yossi minayin l'Ravi b'kodesh u'posel. Where do we know that in Kachim and Kodesh the tumah goes to a level of a Ravi? How do we know that? V'dinu is a kal v'chaymer. Uma machusar kippurim shemutar b'truma posel b'kodesh machusar kippurim. Someone who was toming, and a type of tumah where he has to bring a korban, like a zov and zova yeledes. They, in order after their tumah, they have to bring a korban. So now, if there is a mechusar kippurim, that it was Tomei, the person was Tomei, went to the mikveh, it was nightfall, so they had hair of shemesh, but they did not yet bring the korban. So that type of a person is not matama chulin, he's mutar betruma, but not kachim. So ma mechusar kippurim shemutar betruma pasel b'kodesh, even though he's mutar betruma, he pasels kodesh. He cannot eat kodesh. Shlishi shepasel betruma, a shlishi, a level of shlishi which pasels truma. which makes Truma possible, Einudin Shiasa Revi B'Kodesh, so Kal V'Chaimer, it should make a Revi B'Kodesh. So therefore, you see that there's a level of Revi B'Kodesh. By Kachim, there's a level of Revi. Now, this is not typical in how we learn a Kal V'Chaimer. Normally in a Kal V'Chaimer, we don't say, well, it's a Kal V'Chaimer that it should make a Revi. We would apply the principle of Daya and say, Daya Lav Minadin. We would say that Mama Chusr Kippurim Shemutter B'Truma, possible B'Kodesh. Ma Chusr Kippurim is Mutter Truma, it's possible B'Kodesh. Shlishi, Shepassel B'Truma, a Shlishi, which is possible even B'Truma, Shlishi, which is impossible B'Truma, Kal V'Chaimer, the Daya would say, Einudin, that makes a Shlishi B'Kodesh. If it makes a Shlishi B'Truma, Kal V'Chaimer makes a Shlishi B'Kodesh. That's if we apply the principle of Daya. That's what we normally would say. But we don't say that over here. We say through the Kal V'Chaimer, it can make even a Revi B'Kodesh. Why is that? Because V'lamanu Shlishi B'Kodesh Min HaTorah. Because that there's a Shlishi B'Kodesh, you don't need the Kal V'Chaimer for this. You learn it out Min HaTorah. Like we'll see shortly, you learn out from the Torah. So therefore, if I would say Daya over here would render the Kal V'Chaimer irrelevant. It would be mafre, it would be a pircha on the Kal V'Chaimer. And wherever there's a pircha on the Kal V'Chaimer, if it would now make the Kal V'Chaimer unnecessary, we would be able to learn out anything from the Kal V'Chaimer. We do not apply the principle of Daya. So over here, since we know that there's Shlishis B'Kodesh from the Pasuk, therefore the Kal V'Chaimer, I don't use the Kal V'Chaimer to tell me Shlishi. It's not necessary. It teaches me a Revi. L'man Shlishi B'Kodesh Min HaTorah u'Revi Mikal V'Chaimer. So therefore we learn out that there is a Revi B'Kodesh from a Kal V'Chaimer. So we'll see momentarily what the Pasuk is, the Shlishi Min HaTorah, what the Pasuk is, that there's a Shlishi Min HaTorah. Fact the Marsha, why don't I say, well, let's say that it's only for a Shlishi. And yes, there is, I learn out from a Kal V'Chaimer, I could learn out from a Kal V'Chaimer that there's a Shlishi B'Kodesh. Nevertheless, the Pasuk says it, like we just said before, Mil said also B'Kal V'Chaimer, Tarch L'Kosav L'Kro. Marshall said that's only where there's no alternative, where there's no other thing to learn out. But here it's more mistaber to say that no, the Torah is telling me a din in the Truma, in the Tumah rather. It's telling me therefore that apply the Kal V'Chaimer not for a Shlishi. It's more mistaber to say it's telling me a Chiddush in the din of Tumah and tell me that there's a Revi B'Kodesh. So now, how do we know that there's a Shlishi B'Kodesh, Shlishi Min HaTorah? How do I know there's a Shlishi Min HaTorah? By Kachim, because the Chsiv HaBasar Asher Yiga V'Chol Tomei Lo Ye'ochel. It says a basar of Kachim that touches anything of Tumah, it cannot be eaten. So therefore, it's possible. If it touches anything of Tumah, Milai Skin is a Naga B'Sheni. Aren't we talking that it touched even a Sheni? Because the Torah calls a Sheni Tomei. It says that anything that's in the Kli Cheres, where the Sheretz is in, it will become Yitma, is Tomei. And that is a Sheni. The Sheretz is an Av, the Kli Cheres is a Rishon, and what's in the food or liquid that's in the Kli is a Sheni. And it calls it Tomei. So from this pasuk over here that says that any kachim that touches anything which is Tomei, lo ye'achel, I would learn out that even if it comes into contact with a sheni, it can't be eaten. It's a shlishi, and it's possible. So therefore, I don't need the pasuk to tell me there's a shlishi b'kodesh. Therefore, Revi mikal v'chaimer. I'm reading, and therefore this Kal V'Chaimer that we just said is to teach me that there's a Revi b'kodesh. Now, since we know that there is a Revi b'Kodesh, therefore, and Rav Yossi is learning it out in this manner, there's a Revi b'Kodesh, we'll see, in the next year, we'll see, therefore, that is why Rav Yossi and Rabbi Kiva cannot agree with each other. Rav Yossi doesn't agree with Rabbi Kiva. So we'll see that in the next year.